Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you to speak on a topic that touches the heart deeply. A girl without mother. It's a title that may evoke a sense of loss, longing, and sorrow, but also one that carries immense strength and resilience. A mother is the first teacher, the first comforter, and the first person who shows us the world through their eyes. For a girl, a mother is more than just a parent. She is the keeper of dreams, the source of wisdom, and a never-ending well of unconditional love. A mother's presence is irreplaceable, and when that presence is gone, the world becomes a place that feels colder, more distant, and at times almost unbearable. A mother is the cornerstone of a child's life, especially for a girl. In her presence, the world feels complete, secure, and filled with warmth. She is the first person to guide, nurture, and love unconditionally. The bond between a mother and her child transcends simple affection. It is the deep-rooted connection that gives the girl her sense of self. The importance of a mother cannot be overstated, for she is the one who shapes her child's understanding of the world. The way a girl views love, trust, and herself is often a reflection of the way her mother interacts with her. Imagine for a moment the quiet moments shared between a mother and her daughter. The comforting touch of her hand on the girl's shoulder, the soft, reassuring words that echo in her heart, the way a mother's eyes reflect pride when she looks at her child. These are the moments that form the foundation of a girl's sense of worth. A mother doesn't just care for her child, she teaches her how to care for herself. She models kindness, patience, and the art of resilience. Through her, the girl learns the importance of nurturing her dreams, listening to her inner voice, and holding firm to her values. When a mother is absent, the world seems to lose its clarity. The girl suddenly finds herself in a space where the very essence of her identity feels shaken. Without her mother's steady hand, the world can appear overwhelming, unpredictable, and at times cold. The girl may feel lost, as though she is adrift on a vast ocean without a compass to guide her. The absence of the one person who has always been her anchor brings forth a sense of confusion, and in that void, she may struggle to understand her place in the world. There's a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a quiet, lingering sorrow that no one can fully understand, except those who have experienced such loss. In the midst of this sorrow, something beautiful begins to unfold. The girl, though unaware, begins to tap into an inner strength she never knew she had. For as much as a mother is the foundation of a girl's life, there exists within that same girl the latent power to grow beyond the confines of that initial bond. A mother's love is deeply important, but it is not the sole source of a girl's power. The absence of that love forces the girl to turn inward and look for the reservoir of strength that lies within her. She may not see it at first, but with time she learns to draw from it. This is where transformation occurs. The girl begins to understand that while a mother's presence is a powerful influence, it is not the defining factor in her life. There is a deeper force at work, the force of her own mind, her ability to create and shape her reality. Without her mother's guidance, she learns to become her own guide. She begins to look at life through new eyes, seeing herself not as a reflection of someone else's love, but as the creator of her own destiny. This awakening does not happen overnight, and it is not without its struggles. But in the quiet moments of solitude, the girl learns to recognize her own worth, to validate herself, and to believe in her own power. She realizes that the love her mother gave her was a gift, a foundation that now serves as the strength she can stand on. But she also discovers that this foundation does not define her, it is simply a starting point. From there she can build a life that is uniquely her own. The girl who once felt lost begins to find her way, step by step, moment by moment, not because she is following the path someone else has set for her, but because she is learning to create her own. In this process, the girl taps into the deep wisdom that comes from having faced adversity. She begins to see the world not as a place of uncertainty, but as a canvas on which she can paint her own story. She recognizes that everything she needs to succeed has always been within her, waiting to be discovered. The absence of her mother becomes a catalyst for this discovery, a lesson in self-reliance, and a reminder that she is never truly alone. the girl begins to realize that she has the ability to summon love, strength, and courage from within without needing to rely on external sources. This is the power of the human spirit. In the absence of what we think we need, we often discover the very thing that has been waiting for us all along our own potential. The girl who once felt incomplete now stands tall, her head held high, knowing that her identity is not dependent on anyone else. She has learned that while the love of a mother is priceless, it is not the sole defining factor of her existence. The girl becomes aware that she can draw from the infinite well of love, strength, and wisdom that resides within her, and in doing so, she becomes the woman she was always meant to be. The girl without a mother does not face the world as a broken soul. She faces it as a creator, a builder, and a seeker. She discovers that the essence of who she is was never in the presence of any one person, but in her own ability to tap into the wellspring of life that exists within her. With this knowledge, she walks forward with purpose, knowing that she is complete and whole in herself. The journey of growing without a mother teaches her that love is not just something we receive from others, it is something we are capable of generating within ourselves. A girl without a mother often finds herself standing at the intersection of loss and discovery. When the guiding force of a mother's presence is no longer there, it can seem as though everything familiar has slipped away. A mother is not just a caretaker, she is a reflection of the girl's identity. Through her eyes, the girl learns about her worth, about love, and about her place in the world. The absence of a mother creates a void, a space where nothing feels quite right. The world that once seemed full of possibilities can suddenly appear dark, cold, and indifferent. In such moments, it is easy to feel lost, disconnected, and uncertain about what comes next. But there is an undeniable truth. In these moments of emptiness, they are not the end of the story. They are simply the beginning of a profound awakening. The absence of a mother is not a curse, but a powerful opportunity for the girl to step into her own power. When a mother's love is no longer there to guide her, the girl is compelled to seek that guidance from within. The loss pushes her to explore her own heart, her own desires, and to recognize that the strength and wisdom she thought were only accessible through others are actually within her reach. The girl who once leaned on her mother for comfort now finds herself discovering a wellspring of strength she did not know existed. She begins to understand that while a mother's love is a beautiful and foundational force, it is not the source of her true power. She is not defined by the absence of someone else, but by the presence of her own mind, her own thoughts, and her ability to create and shape her reality. In the silence left behind by her mother, the girl comes to realize that she is capable of moving forward on her own. She begins to build a relationship with herself, one that is rooted in self-love, self-respect, and the understanding that she is not incomplete but whole. Her identity is not dependent on another person's validation. It exists in the pure knowing of her own worth. As the girl embraces this new understanding, she also starts to see the world differently. No longer does she see it as a place of loss and sorrow, but as a vast, open space full of potential, ready to be shaped by her hands. She begins to understand that the circumstances of her life, however painful they may seem, are merely reflections of her inner state. Her thoughts, her beliefs, and her assumptions about the world are what shape the reality she experiences. With this newfound awareness, the girl starts to realize that she has the power to change her circumstances. She is not a passive observer of her life, but the active creator of it. In the absence of her mother, the girl learns to reframe her relationship with herself. She sees herself not as someone who is incomplete, but as someone who is whole, capable, and powerful. She begins to understand that her sense of worth does not come from external validation, but from the love and respect she gives herself. As she nurtures this relationship, she begins to attract people and experiences that reflect this newfound sense of self-worth. The world, once an uncertain and daunting place, begins to mirror back to her the love and confidence she now carries within. The girl who once felt lost and unmoored finds herself standing in the center of her own life, fully aware of her power to shape it. She learns that the pain she felt in her mother's absence is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of her own incredible capacity for growth. She learns that what seems like a void is, in fact, an invitation to tap into her own creative potential. The absence of her mother's love does not diminish her ability to create a life filled with love, joy, and fulfillment. Instead, it opens the door for her to generate that love from within, to see herself as the source of all the beauty and strength she desires in the world. As the girl steps into her own power, she begins to understand that love is not something that is given to us by others, it is something we can cultivate from within. The love she once sought in her mother is now something she realizes she can give to herself. She starts to treat herself with the same compassion, care, and kindness that she once longed for. In doing so, she not only heals herself, but begins to attract relationships and experiences that mirror the love she has cultivated. The absence of her mother, rather than being a permanent wound, becomes the very catalyst for her transformation. Through this process, the girl comes to see that she is not at the mercy of the world or her circumstances, but rather she is the creator of her own reality. She discovers that by changing her thoughts, changing her beliefs, and changing the way she perceives herself, she has the power to create the life she desires. In the absence of her mother's love, she finds that she is capable of generating her own, and in doing so, she transforms not only her own life, but the world around her. The girl who once felt incomplete now stands fully aware of her worth and her ability to create the life she desires. She no longer seeks validation or approval from others, for she knows that all she needs is already within her. She is no longer defined by the absence of her mother, but by the strength, wisdom, and love she has cultivated within herself. She is not broken, not lost, but whole, complete, and fully capable of creating the reality she desires. And in this realization, she steps into a life of boundless possibility, knowing that the power to shape her world has always been within her, waiting to be discovered. The absence of a mother in a girl's life is more than just the absence of a person. It is the absence of a familiar energy that had once created the world she understood. A mother is not merely a caretaker, but a mirror, reflecting the girl's worth, her potential, and her place in the world. In the absence of this figure, the girl may feel as though she has lost her anchor, left to float in a sea of uncertainty. The world, which once seemed so full of possibilities and comforts, may now appear unfamiliar and overwhelming. She may question herself, her worth, and wonder how she can continue on her journey without the very presence that once provided so much direction and comfort. But in this absence lies an incredible opportunity. What the girl does not see at first is that she is not truly alone. She has always had the power within her to create, to shape her world, and to establish her own identity. In the absence of her mother's physical presence, the girl is invited to step into her own power, to begin a journey of self-discovery and self-creation. She does not need to look to others to understand her worth or her purpose. She is the one who must now discover her own voice, her own strength, and her own capacity for love. The key to this transformation lies in her awareness that the power to shape her life does not depend on someone else's approval or love, but on her own thoughts, beliefs, and feelings about herself. For as long as she sees herself as incomplete without her mother, she remains trapped in a story that limits her. The girl must understand that her mother's love was a gift, but it was never the source of her true power. That power was always within her, waiting to be awakened. In the stillness of her grief, she will begin to realize that what she needs to move forward has always been within her, and she can now access it at will. This is where the true journey begins, the journey of reclaiming her inner strength and seeing herself as the creator of her own reality. As the girl awakens to this inner power, she begins to understand that the world around her responds to her state of mind. In the past, she may have sought validation from external sources, whether from her mother, friends, or society. But now, she learns that the world reflects back to her the image of herself that she holds within. If she sees herself as lost, incomplete, or unworthy, she will encounter a world that mirrors those feelings. But when she begins to see herself as whole, capable, and powerful, the world begins to shift accordingly. She sees that the way she perceives herself dictates how the world perceives her and how it treats her. This understanding is not an abstract concept but a practical, lived experience. As she changes her inner dialogue, as she begins to nurture the love she once sought from her mother within herself, she starts to attract different experiences, relationships, and circumstances into her life. The girl discovers that her true power lies in her ability to control her inner world. By changing her thoughts and beliefs about herself, she shifts her external reality. The world becomes a reflection of the love, respect, and worth she now feels for herself. This is not a distant dream or a hopeful wish, but a tangible, undeniable truth that she begins to experience in every moment. In this process, the girl learns that she is not at the mercy of her circumstances. She is not simply reacting to the world around her. Instead, she is the one who shapes her reality. She is the creator of her experience, and the absence of her mother becomes not a void, but a doorway to self-empowerment. She begins to see that she is not defined by what others do or do not give her, but by the power of her own mind. She no longer waits for approval or validation from the outside world. She recognizes that the only approval she needs is her own, and in giving that approval to herself, she opens the door to a life filled with infinite possibilities. The second key to this transformation is the realization that love is not something external that must be given or earned. It is something that can be generated from within. The love the girl once sought from her mother now becomes something she realizes she can cultivate herself. She discovers that love is not a scarce resource but an abundant, ever-flowing force that she can tap into at any time. When she learns to love herself, to treat herself with the same kindness, patience, and compassion that she once sought from others, she begins to see the world respond in kind. The absence of her mother's love does not leave her with a deficit. It opens the door for her to cultivate a deeper, more profound love within herself. As she begins to nurture herself, she becomes a magnet for love in all its forms. The people she encounters, the experiences she has, and the circumstances she faces begin to reflect the love she has cultivated within. The girl learns that love does not come from an external source, but from the energy she creates within herself. She is the one who must first love herself before the world can reflect that love back to her. In doing so, she transforms her life and the lives of those around her. The absence of her mother's love becomes not a cause for sorrow, but a catalyst for her own transformation, for the love she now generates within herself is far greater than she ever imagined. The third key point is the girl's realization that she is not a passive observer of her life, but an active participant in creating it. The absence of her mother serves as a wake-up call, inviting her to step into her own role as the creator of her reality. She begins to understand that her life is not a series of random events or circumstances. It is the result of the thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions she holds. She is not a victim of her past or her circumstances. She is the one who shapes her future, and in doing so, she becomes the creator of her own life. This understanding changes everything. No longer does she wait for external circumstances to change before she takes action. Instead, she begins to act from a place of inner certainty, knowing that as she changes her thoughts, her world will change. The girl who once felt powerless in the face of loss now recognizes that she has the power to create the life she desires. The absence of her mother is not a permanent barrier, but an opportunity for her to discover the immense creative power that lies within her. As the girl learns to harness this power, she becomes aware of the infinite possibilities that are available to her. The world is no longer a place of limitation, but a place of endless potential. She understands that her thoughts and beliefs shape her reality, and that by changing her inner state, she can bring about any change she desires. The girl who once felt small and insignificant now stands tall, fully aware of her ability to create and shape her own future. When a girl finds herself without a mother, it may seem as though the world has become a darker, more difficult place. A mother is not simply a source of nourishment and care, but a symbol of unconditional love, security, and identity. The bond between a mother and daughter is unique, serving as the foundation from which the girl begins to understand her value and place in the world. In the absence of this figure, it can feel as though something essential has been lost. The girl may struggle to make sense of her new reality, feeling disconnected from the love, guidance, and support that once seemed so steadfast. It is in this very absence that the opportunity for growth and self-discovery emerges. For the first time, the girl is invited to turn inward, to seek the strength and wisdom that has always been there, buried beneath the surface. While the loss of a mother can certainly create a void, it is also an invitation to recognize that the power to define her life and shape her future has always resided within her. But the absence of her mother is not a sign of weakness, but an awakening to the reality that the girl has the ability to navigate life on her own terms. The girl's first realization is that her worth does not come from others. It is not determined by the love or approval of anyone else, even a mother. While a mother's love is undoubtedly an important and cherished gift, it is not the source of the girl's true value. Her worth is inherent, an inner light that cannot be extinguished by the absence of anyone else. The absence of a mother, rather than diminishing her, serves as a powerful reminder that the girl is complete in herself. She does not need someone else to validate her existence. The love she once sought externally can now be found within her own heart, for she is the source of her own strength, love, and self-worth. This realization is transformative. It begins to change how she views herself and her role in the world. No longer does she see herself as someone who must rely on the love of others to feel complete. Instead, she starts to recognize that she has the power to generate love, confidence, and strength from within. Her identity is not tied to someone else's perception of her. It is forged in the quiet, powerful understanding that she is enough just as she is. This is the first step in her journey of self-empowerment, learning that she is the creator of her own sense of worth. The next realization that the girl comes to is the understanding that the world around her is a reflection of her inner state. In the absence of her mother, she may initially feel overwhelmed by feelings of loss, sadness, and even hopelessness. But as she begins to look inward and connect with her own strength, she starts to notice that her external circumstances shift in response to her inner changes. When she changes her thoughts and beliefs about herself, the world around her begins to reflect those changes. The girl begins to realize that her life is not dictated by external circumstances, but by the thoughts she holds about herself and the world. As she shifts her internal state from one of lack and sorrow to one of abundance and confidence, she sees the world respond in kind. People begin to treat her with more respect, kindness, and love. Opportunities present themselves where once there seemed to be none. The relationships she forms are healthier and more fulfilling. This is not mere coincidence, but the law of attraction at work. The outer world is a mirror of the inner world. What the girl learns through this process is that she is not a passive recipient of life's events, but an active creator of her own reality. She is the one who holds the power to shape her experiences, to choose the thoughts and beliefs that will determine the life she leads. The absence of her mother no longer feels like a tragedy, but a catalyst for her personal transformation. She no longer waits for someone else to give her approval or love. Instead, she understands that the love she once sought from her mother is something she can cultivate within herself, and in doing so, she attracts more of that love from the world. As this understanding deepens, the girl becomes aware of the infinite possibilities available to her. The world is no longer a place of limitation, but one of boundless potential. She is not at the mercy of external circumstances, but rather she is the creator of her own experiences. She understands that by changing her inner world, her thoughts, her beliefs, and her feelings, she can shape her external world to reflect her true desires. No longer does she feel small, insignificant, or dependent on the love of others. She knows that she holds the key to her own happiness, success, and fulfillment. The next key point in her transformation is the realization that love is not something that is given to her by others, but something she generates from within. The girl once relied on her mother's love to feel secure, to feel valued, to feel worthy. But as she steps into her own power, she begins to understand that love is not an external force to be sought, but an internal force to be embraced. She discovers that she can generate love for herself at any time, regardless of what others may or may not give her. The absence of her mother's love, rather than leaving her with a feeling of emptiness, becomes the very thing that enables her to cultivate a deeper, more profound love for herself. She begins to see that the love she has for herself is the most important kind of love there is. It is the foundation upon which all other love is built. When she learns to love herself, she opens herself up to receive love in all its forms, not just from others, but from the world around her. The relationships she forms become more meaningful and fulfilling, and she begins to attract experiences that reflect the love she now feels for herself. The absence of her mother becomes a profound blessing, a gift that opens the door to the girl's personal transformation. She learns that love is not something she must seek from others, but something she can generate from within. In doing so, she becomes a magnet for the love, respect, and opportunities that were always meant for her. The girl who once felt lost now stands empowered, fully aware of her own worth and her ability to create the life she desires. The absence of her mother does not diminish her, it empowers her to recognize the infinite power she holds within. The girl's journey is one of self-realization, of understanding that the power to shape her life has always been within her. The absence of her mother does not mark the end of her story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one in which she becomes the creator of her own reality. Through this journey, she learns that her worth is not defined by others, that the world around her mirrors her inner state, and that love is something she can generate from within. In this understanding, she finds the power to create the life she desires, and she does so with unwavering confidence and love for herself. A girl without a mother stands at a crossroad between grief and awakening. The absence of this maternal figure can feel like a profound loss, as the girl experiences a sense of void, a missing piece that once completed the puzzle of her existence. A mother's love, nurturing, and guidance form the foundation of a girl's understanding of herself, of who she is, and where she belongs. It is not just a physical presence, it is an emotional and spiritual anchor. The bond between a mother and daughter carries with it a sense of belonging, unconditional love, and acceptance, which provides a sense of security in the world. Without it, everything may seem unclear and unfamiliar. The girl must learn a deep and essential truth. The absence of her mother does not equate to a loss of herself. The absence is not a void that can never be filled, but an invitation to awaken to her own inner strength and power. She is called to understand that her worth, her strength, her power, and her ability to create a meaningful life are not tied to another person, even the one who once seemed to define her existence. She is the creator of her own identity, and the loss of the familiar external guidance is the catalyst that pushes her toward self-discovery. The key to this transformation lies within her, hidden beneath the layers of sorrow and grief, waiting to be realized. The first revelation the girl comes to is the understanding that her worth is not contingent upon anyone else, not even her mother. For as long as she perceives her worth as something that can be given or taken away by external forces, she remains trapped in a cycle of seeking validation. Her mother's love was a reflection of her own innate worth, but it was never the source of it. The girl must come to understand that she is complete in herself, that her worth exists independently of anyone else's perception of her. This is a liberating truth, the recognition that she is already whole, that her value is intrinsic and not dependent on another's approval. This realization may feel foreign, even uncomfortable, because the girl has been conditioned to seek approval, love, and validation from those around her. But in time, she begins to feel the depth of her own inner strength. Her worth is not defined by the love or absence of others, but by the way she sees herself. As she shifts her focus inward, she begins to discover a profound truth. Her identity is not something that is shaped by external forces, but something that she has the power to define for herself. The girl's second realization is the understanding that the world around her is a reflection of her inner state. In the absence of her mother, she may feel alone, isolated, and uncertain about how to move forward. But she must come to recognize that the way she perceives the world, her beliefs, her thoughts, and her feelings directly influence her experiences. The external world is not an impartial observer, but a mirror of her internal reality. As she learns to shift her internal beliefs from those of lack, limitation, and sorrow to those of abundance, love, and empowerment, the world begins to reflect these new beliefs. The girl who once saw herself as incomplete and lost begins to experience a shift. Her external world starts to align with her internal state, and she begins to see people, opportunities, and experiences that support her new beliefs about herself. This is not a mere coincidence, but the law of cause and effect in action. What she feels internally begins to manifest externally. When she changes the way she sees herself and the world responds by showing her new possibilities. She sees that her experiences, her relationships, and her opportunities are not random, but are a direct reflection of her inner state of mind. She now understands that by changing her internal world, she can change her external circumstances. This realization empowers the girl, for she recognizes that she is not a passive participant in her life, but an active creator. The absence of her mother no longer feels like a painful burden, but a sign that it is time for her to step into her own power. She begins to understand that she is the one who is responsible for the life she creates, and she does not need to wait for external validation to feel worthy or loved. She is the one who must generate these feelings from within, and as she does, she begins to notice the world respond to her in kind. The third awakening for the girl is the recognition that love is not something that is given to her by others, but something she can generate from within herself. For so long, the girl may have relied on her mother's love to feel safe, valued, and worthy. But in the absence of that love, she comes to understand that the love she seeks is not something that can be given to her externally. It is something she can create and cultivate herself. She realizes that the love she feels for herself is the most powerful and important kind of love there is. In this discovery, the girl understands that love is an abundant force that flows from within. It is not something to be earned, but something to be embraced. The absence of her mother's love, instead of creating a sense of emptiness, becomes an opportunity for the girl to learn to love herself more deeply. When she begins to give herself the love, respect, and care she once sought from others, she starts to see the world reflect this love back to her. Relationships become more fulfilling, opportunities for growth arise, and the world becomes a more loving place because she has learned to first love herself. The fourth realization is that the girl is not a passive observer of her life, but an active creator of it. The absence of her mother pushes her into a new awareness that her life is shaped by her thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions. The world she experiences is a direct result of the images she holds in her mind. She begins to understand that her life is not dictated by external circumstances, but by the thoughts she chooses to entertain. When she shifts her thoughts and beliefs, she shifts her reality. The girl begins to recognize that she has the power to create the life she desires. The absence of her mother no longer feels like an insurmountable obstacle, but a powerful catalyst for her personal transformation. She knows that she does not need to wait for the world to change before she takes action. She understands that the change must come from within. By changing the images she holds in her mind, she transforms her experiences and begins to attract what she truly desires. The fifth awakening is the realization that her sense of worth, love, and identity is not tied to anyone else's approval, and the world does not control her destiny, she does. The girl begins to understand that her life is an ongoing creation of her inner thoughts, beliefs, and desires. She is the one who holds the pen, the one who determines the narrative. The absence of her mother becomes a springboard for her own creative power, and she steps forward into her life with new awareness and confidence, knowing that she is the creator of her reality. As she embraces this newfound power, she transforms not only her life but the world around her, as the reflection of her thoughts and beliefs begins to manifest in ways she never imagined possible. In the journey of a girl without a mother, there is a profound transformation that takes place, one that shifts her from a sense of loss to a deep understanding of her own power. The absence of a mother, while initially painful, becomes a catalyst for self-discovery, self-empowerment, and self-love. It is a powerful reminder that our worth is not defined by external forces or the presence of others, but by our own beliefs and perceptions about ourselves. As she moves through the grief and the confusion, the girl begins to realize that the love she once sought externally can be cultivated from within. She learns that she is not a passive observer of her life, but an active creator of her reality. Through this journey, she discovers that her true strength lies not in the love or approval of others, but in the love she gives herself and the belief she has in her own worth. The girl, once lost in the absence of her mother, finds a new path forward. She becomes the creator of her own identity, the author of her own story, and the architect of her own future. She understands that the power to shape her world is within her, and she is no longer dependent on anyone else to give her the validation, love, or sense of purpose she once sought. The absence of her mother, rather than diminishing her, has helped her awaken to the infinite potential that resides within her. It has shown her that she is capable of creating a life filled with love, strength, and fulfillment. Ultimately, the girl discovers that she is never truly without, for she carries within her the essence of all that she needs to thrive: love, power, and the ability to shape her destiny. The absence of her mother becomes not a sorrowful ending, but a powerful beginning to a life she is now fully prepared to create on her own terms.